The Mental Wind Down with Stu and Henriette, a show talking all things mental health.
Hi, welcome to podcast number 2. There you go.
Podcast 2, yes.
Yeah.
So in a moment you'll listen to a interview that we did earlier on with a lad called Jose that we know, who's a consultant in the NHS. Won't go too much into it because we'll leave you the about half an hour interview, which was really, really good, wasn't it?
Very good interview, yeah.
Really, really good. All the inside on the NHS at the moment during these times. So not much to tell you really of what's happened because we only did the other podcast 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So not much happens in COVID life.
Yeah. 3 things have happened.
Well, yeah. The car broke.
Mm-hmm.
My bike broke.
Mm-hmm.
And then the frying pan broke.
There you go.
I'm still trying to work out which one's the worst one.
I know exactly which one is the worst.
For you, yeah, it's the car, isn't it?
The car,
yeah. It's the bike. Although it's fixed now.
Well, yeah, see there.
And the frying pan.
And the car's not fixed, and that's going to take a long time to get fixed. And be pricey.
Yeah.
Car's the worst. Definitely.
Well, yeah, I had to walk, 4 miles to the supermarket today.
Can I just say that you volunteered?
Well, you can't walk. You've got that gammy knee.
Yeah, I could still do it. It would just take me a lot longer.
As long as you don't do left-hand turns.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, everything's happening in threes and all that bollocks.
Apparently, yeah.
But yeah, so we shall leave you to this interview. Hope you really enjoy it. And we're booking in some really exciting guests. They're coming through on WhatsApp and through text messages now. Yeah, over to Jose. So welcome to the Mental Wind Down, Jose. It's great to have you on, mate. So we've known each other for quite a few years now, haven't we? Used to be your personal trainer. So rather than me talk about you, can you just sort of introduce yourself, name, job title, where you work, and go from there?
Yeah, so my name's Jose Ibrahim. I'm a consultant in anaesthesia and intensive care medicine at the University Hospitals Birmingham Trust, but I work primarily at Heartlands and Good Hope and Solihull hospitals. Been here for about 12 years.
Okay, busy man.
Busy man, yeah. Previously military for 6 years, Royal Artillery.
Yeah. We don't talk about that though, mate, do we? Because I'm ex-Navy, we don't.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a difference between the 3 services, and obviously Army ranks higher than Navy, but we don't talk about that.
Not for intellect there, Jose, not for intellect.
Yeah, right there.
So it's been a strange time, really, being the NHS and the job that you do. So is it all true that it's sort of calming down now in the hospitals, or is it still as busy as when we sort of peaked those weeks ago?
You're right in the sense that it is calming down. So the number of new patients that are coming through the door has definitely decreased, both at Heartlands and at QE and all of the other hospitals that have suffered. Unfortunately, no one suffered more than Heartlands, but I think that's because of the demographic that it serves. There are fewer people that are coming in through the door. But there are still lots of people on the ITU because this disease wasn't a typical, a 3-day stay, 5-day stay, 7-day stay on ITU. The data that the Chinese and the Italians have given us is that the length of stay on the ITU on average is about 3 weeks. We've had some patients who have been on our unit for 2 months because that's the nature of how COVID attacks you, and the recovery is very, very long. And I'm only talking about the ITU recovery. They'll have months, if not years of recovery afterwards, once they actually get out of hospital. So it's coming down in that sense, but when this first kicked off, we closed off all of the other services. There was no operating, there were no outpatient clinics. So you had a whole load of doctors and nurses who were essentially free. And they all came to help on ITU and A&E and on the respiratory wards to add an extra pair of hands. So in one sense, even though the workload was really high and it was anything but calm, it was crazy at that time, we had lots of people to help. Now, all these patients with cancer and other diseases, they still need their treatment. So we're trying to get them treated. So all of the extra help that we had has now gone. So in some sense, for us as individuals in ITU, it's not actually any calmer because we've lost all of that help.
So what sort of, give us a typical day during COVID as your job in Heartlands. What was your sort of typical day? How long, and how busy and hard was it?
Oh, there's no doubt it's been tough. So the workload is very, very high, and I'll tell you my typical day. The circumstances have been uncertain as well, because this is a new disease. Whilst I've been doing ITU since 2005, this disease works in a different way. So there's all the uncertainties about the disease, which we're all trying to learn. The junior doctors and nurses are all overwhelmed, and we're pushing all the hospitals' resources to the limit as well. But we have managed to cope, and we haven't turned anyone down at all. And I believe that is pretty much standard for any hospital in the UK at least. So my typical day. We've got clinical days where I'm actually in the hospital, and then days like today where I'm actually doing other things, so working from home. But a typical clinical day, you turn up about 7:30, you go around and make sure that the night staff were okay. There's been a lot of tears and that sort of thing, and if we don't handle that properly, then that could lead to a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, and also people will just not want to come back the following day. So the first part is checking up on the staff. And then at 8 o'clock, we have a handover. So we have a thorough handover of all of the patients and what's been going on and what are the most important things that we need to treat. And that takes us up to about 9. And then from 9 till 12, we go and see all of those patients in depth. But I don't do a ward round like I used to do. We've got so many patients, we've had to break them up into sectors and areas and then little buddy systems. So everyone goes and sees their own patients, and then they report up to their seniors, they report up to their seniors, and then the area leads then reports back to the sector lead, which is me. So it's a very weird way of working. I don't actually get as much hands-on as I used to, which is freaking me out, because I like to polish all of the little attention and all those sorts of things, which I don't get a chance to do. And if we've got someone who is junior taking responsibility of all the patients, they don't know what they don't know. So they can't come, you know, if they know there's a problem, they can come and tell me and I can help them with it. But being new to ITU, they don't know some of the things that they need to look out for. And that's what's freaking me out a little.
So how are you dealing with your own mental health? And I suppose you are like the father figure for quite a lot of these junior doctors and nurses. So how have you sort of coped with your own mental health, but then been a sort of a father figure for these guys as well?
Well, actually, I don't know if I've coped well, but I've been very well. So what I mean by that is I've just not had any problems in the sense that I've felt down in any way. And I think it's because the camaraderie is brilliant at the hospital. We've built loads of new relationships with lots of new people, new surgeons, new physicians, new nurses that come to the ITU. And we've been able to strengthen our relationships with the colleagues that we work with all the time anyway. But also I've been able to teach more, and you know how I like talking, Stu. But most of the time, I just go around spending a large proportion of my time just making sure that our team of about 50 daily doctors and nurses are smiling. And it's that sort of human interaction that's kept me going. But also, as I said, at home, it's been brilliant as well. I've learned how to rest, which I know it sounds weird, but...
I've never known you to rest, mate.
No, but I could get used to this. I woke up at 9:30 today.
Oh, wow.
I've spent more time with my wife and the kids. We talk more, we cook more together. Well, actually, my son does most of the cooking, but I watch him. We play silly games. We just realized that we are people, and that's been really good. But I sort of thrive on this camaraderie and um, appreciation. And we've had a lot of appreciation. I think that's really, really helped us more. We've had appreciation from the senior directors at the hospital. They allow us basically free rein to do whatever we want to and give us the autonomy to do what we know is right. Then we've also had appreciation from family and friends, and also from the public.
On a Thursday night, is that quite humbling when you see the clips on sort of social media or the news and stuff that you're part of?
It's always very humbling. Initially, it was a bit emotionally overwhelming because people haven't done that. You know what the media's been like over the last 20 years or so. Doctors, the NHS have always been blamed for everything, and whenever something happens, so we've kind of got into that mentality. So now, to see how things have turned around, people have been applauding and being really grateful. That's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's sort of another question as well, because you were saying there that you've helped people to smile, and that your directors have supported you and sort of said, you just got to get on and do the job. Is there anything that you think that the NHS staff would need, like right now, that are not getting? Is there anything that you think as a workplace that the NHS staff would be, would be really good for them to have?
I think that's a difficult question because different people need different things and need different things at different times. But I think above all, what everyone needs is understanding from their managers. And the sort of things people might need, well, one example is that the workload's really high, and people have cancelled all their annual leave. They're coming and working really long hours, and they're exhausted. And we need, I know it sounds something small, but people need to be given the flexibility in the future to take annual leave and have that promise that you will get your annual leave back, you will get time back, you will, we appreciate that you put all this time in. And that promise of something in the future gives a lot of hope, and that is amazing for mental well-being.
Is there a lot of support? Is there a support sort of network structure for mental health within that you see as a forefront more now than there was?
Yeah, so our department has started debrief sessions, and we have a consultant and a psychologist available for drop-in sessions for junior doctors and nurses as well. Because as I said before, post-traumatic stress disorder is really high. We knew that we would see it, or we suspected that we would see it, but we're seeing it already. People are, crying in the corner of the changing rooms at the end of the day, and they need someone to talk to. So this is a consultant and a psychologist that sit together and help. But that's for the junior team. There's not much support for senior staff. So we've always, as consultants, been, we have to show strength, not weakness. If we show weakness, then everyone else is going to fall apart. There's a good friend of mine. He got COVID. It wasn't that bad. He didn't need to get admitted to hospital, but he was sick and he did have to take a couple of weeks off work. And of course, we chatted regularly, and I'd ask him, how are you? And he would say, oh, I've got muscle aches, but I'm okay. Well, I've got a bit of shortness of breath, but I'm okay. I've had a cough, but I'm okay. So he kept saying that he was okay. But, when you know someone quite well, I knew that things weren't quite right. He didn't write lengthy replies on text messages or send jokes and all that. And after a bit of probing, he told me that he'd been quite depressed sitting at home.
Yeah.
And this is the very example. I'm a close friend to him, and I'm a colleague. We work together day in, day out. We do the same job. I know what he does, and he knows what I do. I know what pressures he's in. He knows that I'd understand him as a friend and as a colleague, but it took me a long time to get that out from him, and he hasn't told anyone else. So
it's amazing how that it's okay to say everything about the physicality of how you feel, but not the mentally way.
Yeah, because it's just, it's not a done thing. It's these very people that don't seek help and yet are supposed to be there available to help everyone else. I don't know what the answer is. Stu, with rugby players, we don't ask for help.
Yeah,
It's not done.
Yeah, it's admitting that you have maybe a problem and you're suffering a little bit, but it's that next step. The help might be there, but it's taking that step to go and get that help or open up to that one person. And that's for anybody in general, I think.
And also saying that you're saying that the fact that you as a consultant have to be really strong all the time and lead from the front to not crumble. And I suppose if people see that we're all human, everybody can crumble in their own time. And if it's a culture change that people see that it's okay, anyone can feel mentally down in situations, whether you are top management or whether you're a junior nurse or junior doctor. And I think that would, if that could change, then that would definitely help people to speak up more, because he obviously didn't want to tell you because he saw it himself as a weakness in that sense.
And a responsibility to the rest of the team, because if we do start feeling ill or showing mental weakness, our position is there as mental leaders of the whole. The hospital is a hierarchy. Whether when we say it's not, but ultimately it is, and the sicker the patients get, the closer they get to intensive care, and in the hierarchy intensive care, the leader is the consultant. So in effect, you could argue almost it's a clinical hierarchical top of the pyramid of the hospital. And if that person is weak, then how does the rest of the army cope? And the hospital has been likened to wartime medicine right now. And if your commanding officer was crying in the corner, then how did they lead the rest of the team? And it's that responsibility as well. So even if this friend of mine had wanted to seek help, I suppose there's a feeling of responsibility that I can't do this right now. I can't admit weakness right now until all this is over, or maybe never ask for it until possibly it's too late.
Yeah.
How hard has it been for the relationship between, say, you guys and a patient? Because obviously the patient isn't allowed anybody in the hospital to visit them. Are you seeing a spike, or is it a lot harder to look after them, as in like mentally and than normal?
Yeah. So my unit or my working environment is different. So on ICU, most of my patients are unconscious.
Okay.
So actually, I don't have to speak to patients very much, but there is something there that is important I'll mention. What has been very difficult is not having family there. Normally, if someone is really sick, they've only got days left, or I need to have a conversation to say, we need to turn the life support machine off. That's a difficult conversation. It's always a difficult conversation, but if you're sitting in front of me and I can look you in your eyes, you can read my body language and I can explain to you what's going on and build that sort of trust, then you might be able to accept what I'm saying and hopefully move on in the grieving procedure. But if I ring you up as relatives of someone who is about to die on ITU, and I say to you, I know you haven't seen them for 2 weeks, and you haven't been able to be there beside them, and you haven't met me, you don't know who I am, you haven't built rapport with me, you don't know whether you trust me or not, I could be anyone. And now having to tell you that this person's going to die, your loved one is going to die, and you can't come in and see them, you'll never see them again. That's been really, really, really tough. And those conversations, I mean, as I said, they're never easy conversations. And they're the ones that emotionally drain me at the end of the day anyway. Now having to do this on the phone is very, very difficult. Now, your original question is, how do you deal with patients? When patients wake up from a critical illness in ITU, they're always confused. We call it delirium because we've peppered them with drugs and they've been sick and blood flow has been different to their brain and all that. So they always wake up a bit confused. But the one thing that they really need is a familiar face, a familiar voice. So when you've got your wife or your daughter or your son or your mum or someone sitting next to you saying, it's okay, I'm here with you, you're in hospital, these people are here to help you, it helps. But when you've got no one there at all reassuring you, it makes their delirium much worse. And they're frightened because all they can see is some people dressed in really weird suits, sort of, spacemen coming and poking them in their hand, poking them in the neck, poking them in the head, in the groin. they don't realize that these are doctors and nurses trying to help them. The natural response is that I'm being attacked by, someone that looks like an alien, basically.
Yeah.
You can imagine how frightening it is for patients.
Oh yeah, horrendous. Yeah.
It's a mental health issue for the patients as well as the doctors and nurses with it, because it's so difficult situation with not having anybody else around with the families. It's a massive impact, and then again, not impact on the families as well at home, who's dealing with the loss or the worry and everything as well. I can't deal with the family. It's a whole circle of, like, where I can see as well the post-traumatic stress disorder within that, which is going to have a huge impact on lots of different people in different ways.
Yeah, but on a positive note of COVID as it happened, I think as a country now, we can now see how important our NHS is and how it is at the forefront in the world, really, of being the best, because we haven't used any of the beds in the Nightingale hospitals in Birmingham, Manchester and London because our hospitals are that good. And I'm very humbled and we're very lucky to have a service that we've got to, especially with COVID. Even if you break your leg playing rugby or something, you're going to get it fixed automatically straight away, no questions asked. Do you know what I mean? And it's a massive positive, I think, is for us to keep this NHS and not let it go private. And hopefully we can find the money and people can do what they do in the big posh buildings down in London to try and keep it.
Yeah, I think that's what is needed. And it's not just money. Those of us who are in the NHS and working it all the time realize that it's not just money. People work to different degrees depending on their mental well-being, their feeling of appreciation within an organization. And the NHS has, in the 20 odd years that I've been working in it, moved from something that is run by clinicians who understand medicine to people who understand finance. We need both people, but it's gone from one extreme to the other. We're run by managers who look at spreadsheets, and what we're doing is treating patients who have feelings. And we need to find some sort of happy medium.
Yeah. So you're, obviously, we just spoke a moment ago that you're going through Ramadan at the moment. How hard has it been? Ramadan is, well, I've PT'd you before during Ramadan, and it is hard for you on an energy level basis. But how hard has it been with how busy you've been during COVID?
I'm used to it. I've been doing it for more than 40 years. But the good thing is...
Get out of it, you're not 40.
No, I keep turning 21 every year. And happy 40th to you this year as well.
We don't talk about that, Jose.
It's the thirst and the lack of sleep that is a little bit troublesome. The lack of food isn't such a problem. I have built up over the years a supply of energy around my middle area here. The food's not the problem. It's all fine. It's the way that you look at it from a mental point of view. It's something that's helping me in other ways. And at the very least, I don't have to take a lunch break, so I've got more time to look after patients.
Oh, and as your faith helped you as well during COVID, have you reflected more on it?
Yes, as I said, we're praying a lot more anyway, so it's just coincided. Ramadan and COVID seem to have coincided, and we're spending a lot more time praying anyway, because we would do in Ramadan, but actually because of COVID, it's been much more of a reflectful time in any case. So yes, it's definitely helped. And our community has got together quite a lot as well. So there's lots of people out there who haven't been able to go shopping, elderly people who don't want to go out to supermarkets. So we have been delivering food parcels and things like that. And our community worldwide, I had an email yesterday saying that 130,000 food parcels have been delivered to people who need it around the world. And there've been twice a day daily sermons as well, not just religious things, but they've been talking about all sorts of things that help you in your daily life. And it's just been fun sitting down, listening to that, knowing that you're not alone, and someone could be listening to this in New Orleans in America at the same time as someone in Auckland in New Zealand and in India somewhere, and just felt more of a family. So those sort of things spiritually has brought everyone together and stronger.
Yeah, that's very good.
Actually, in some ways, it's worked out nicer. When we pray at home, everyone just prays in their own room. I'm downstairs in the lounge, my wife's upstairs in the room, the kids are in their own rooms, and they say their own prayers in their own time. But right now, we're all in the lounge, all together, praying together, and that's brought us closer together as a family.
Oh, lovely.
So it's ironic.
Yeah.
There are some good things that have came out of this, haven't there?
Yeah, more good than bad.
Yeah.
People have died and people have suffered. There's no doubt about that, and you won't be able to get away from that at all. But if you look at all the things that have actually happened, so people have got closer together as families, people are closer at work, people are exercising more, except me.
Not yet, Jose.
Yeah, we'll start on Sunday. Environment's better, roads are better.
Yeah.
People are more respectful of each other. People are more appreciative of each other.
Yeah, that's very good.
So we have a question about what your favourite food is. So what are you really favourite food looking forward to after Eid to or because you have a big celebration Eid anyway, don't you? And you eat. There's a big massive meal, and what's the first thing that you're going to put in your mouth, mate?
What's the first thing that we're going to? Now, you inspired me to build a barbecue. So I'm pointing at it there because it's just outside in the garden there. So the first thing is going to have a nice big barbecue on Saturday lunchtime. And I'm going to get my tagine out and make a tagine.
Nice.
Wow. Fair play. Fair play. Well, thank you very much for joining us, mate. It's been great to have an insight in the hospital and the NHS. Obviously, we were our first podcast. We're talking about how much negative press there is, and you can sort of get taken over from it on the negative numbers and how many people are dying, how many people have got COVID. But it's nice to have the realism, I suppose, and the truth from someone inside the hospital. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the opportunity. And I think it's really amazing that people like you are doing what I might describe as responsible reporting. There is a lot of negative press out there, as you said, scaremongering, conspiracy theories, which may or may not be true, but it doesn't matter. What we need is responsible reporting and people going around saying that there is good in the world. There's good at the end. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's good people around.
I've never been called responsible, mate, let alone being a responsible reporter.
Take that as a huge compliment.
I'll write it down.
But yeah, we've taken quite a lot of positives out of this time. Having at home and being out of work, it's I suppose it's difficult and different, but it's nice being out the rat race. And I've been showing you photos of our garden, of the little things I've been. We've got a show garden now. It's been great. Hopefully we have something out of it. Yeah. So thank you very much, mate. And I'll see you very soon. Well, I'll catch you on the phone, and this will be hopefully live on the podcast from tomorrow. So I'll throw it over to you, buddy.
And
brilliant. Yeah, send me the link. Yeah, great.
Send our love to all your colleagues as well.
Will do.
We think about them a lot. You think about how people are dealing with everything. So, yeah.
Thanks. That's what actually is the reward for us. That's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
People's comments.
Well, the NHS is amazing. You and your team are amazing for what you're doing, and take big kudos from that. And have an amazing Eid over the weekend.
Thanks. I'll send you photos.
Yeah, I'll see you next week to burn it all off, Jose.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks
see you
so
later.
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jose. I thought it was quite inspiring. A lot to reflect on, really. Things that I've thought about before, but he put some things in perspective that I never thought about. The fact that you have to explain over the phone to someone to trust them about their medical opinion, and he hasn't even built up a rapport. I thought that was quite poignant and heartfelt. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to work in those circumstances, really.
Or even be in those circumstances as the patient.
Yeah.
To be a Jose or the staff, or to be a patient as well. It's just random, isn't it? It's just horrible. And Jose text this afternoon saying thank you very much for the interview, and he's reflected and made him think about the last few weeks. Yeah. So just by talking, it's been good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't often think that people in his high position get a chance to think about how they feel, do they, really?
No.
Because
she's always looking after somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've never known a more busy man or caring man.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely man.
We'll say goodbye.
Yeah.
Remember to subscribe at a circle here and watch a video. The previous one I'll stick on there. We shall see you next week.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Just search The Mental Wind Down. Listen anytime and anywhere.